everybody. Welcome to Turning Lemons into Lemonade, the new micro wedding and staycation honeymoon trend. My name is Lindsey Chase, and I'm here today with the experts behind micro weddings and eloping, Kim Olsen with the Art of Eloping, and Emily Klassen with EKKlassen Consulting. So, guys, wedding obviously looks a little bit different these days with the pandemic. What are some of the new trends you have seen?
So I've seen couples really just focus on a meaningful location. So they can't have their big wedding hall venue they settled on. They're forced to go small and stay local. So they're looking at those spots that really mean something to each of them. It could be where they got engaged, the restaurant where that happened, or a park where they had their first date maybe. Something that's very sentimental and sweet. Or they're doing something that's sort of on a local, quote unquote bucket list. Something that they enjoy doing together when they dated, such as visiting breweries or vineyards or wineries. A lot of these venues have adapted to the micro wedding, and they're giving awesome elopement packages that these couples are taking advantage of, and also kind of just checking something off their bucket list as they go. So it's a neat opportunity to just stay local and get small and get meaningful.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I've definitely seen an increase in a lot of outdoor events. Lots of couples interested in moving their celebrations outside, largely, of course, because a lot of people feel safer, I think, outside in the fresh air. I work with Alexandria restaurant partners, and they've seen a significant increase in inquiries for their outdoor dining spaces, specifically the Riverside Taco Company patio, which is right down there on the waterfront. So it has great views, and it's a great space for that. Another one I would say is the Tall Ship Providence is another cool spot that could be fun to do something really unique on a historic setting on the water. There's also been an increase in requests for catering at home, at hotel suites, at Airbnbs, or even event venues. The garden at Building Momentum is a great example of a really cool rustic space that would be perfect to do a wedding reception in, and would be really easy to decorate even with just a bunch of candles and some greenery. You could keep it simple. And I would say many couples are scaling down out of necessity, unfortunately. But they're reducing guest counts in some cases significantly, and some are moving to smaller venues. We've also seen some couples reducing their budget, obviously, or in some cases just reallocating it. I worked with a couple who had originally planned to do a grand wedding in Italy, and then decided they're just going to do a small celebration at Mia's Italian Kitchen and buy a house. So, lots of different ways to kind of look at it again, making lemonade there out of those lemons. But scaling down could also mean you have the opportunity to do something fancier at a wedding or at a venue that you maybe really love, but either couldn't afford before, or it wasn't big enough for the size of the group you have. And it doesn't have to mean scaling down that the style of your event changes. You can still do black tie. You can still have kind of some of the same elements you had planned to do. We had another couple that was planning to do a wedding of 180 people at a grand venue in DC, and now they're going to do 30 people at a small restaurant in Alexandria, but still keep the black tie. So, yeah.
I totally know what couples are going through right now firsthand, because I was supposed to have a big wedding in September, but we decided to push the wedding to next year, but we still got married with just family this year at River Farm in Alexandria, and it was the most perfect micro wedding. So I totally know what people are going through. I did, however, have a lot of trouble balancing our wedding by downsizing our wedding and still having our dream ceremony. So what elements of design do you all think can be included to ensure that people are going to have the wedding that they always dreamed of?
Sure. So I think the best thing couples can do is just get really creative with it. Work with your planner on some ideas, work with the owner of the venue on what they're capable to help you with. Try new things, because now is the time to have fun with something. 20 people is a lot different than 200. So if you want to now have that elaborate floral wall, and maybe you're picking a place that's got, it's a blank canvas like Port City Brewing or Lost Boys Cider, if those are your bucket list stops, you can do an awesome plant wall there. I've actually seen that done in some breweries, and it looks really, really cool. You can explore having fresh fruit place cards. That's something that's not realistic with 200 people, but with a much smaller venue, it can be a really sweet touch, literally, but also, you know, play around with the fruit for fall and winter. And it's, you know, just have fun with the format. You can do, you know, the sky's the limit. So take an event that was an invite only event and turn it into a surprise ceremony. Maybe that is an engagement party. If you're newly, you know, engaged, you're announcing to everybody. Maybe that's a housewarming party, and when everyone shows up, it's your ceremony, and it's a big surprise. The photos are great. The guests love it, and it's so much fun for everyone, and especially kind of lightens the mood in this sort of, you know, doom and gloom pandemic that we're in. It can be a really great way to incorporate your vendors as well. So you can keep your photographer, your florist, your caterer, have a cake. Keep them all integrated seamlessly. You're just totally changing the format and having a lot more fun with it.
That sounds so much fun. Emily, what kind of suggestions do you have?
You know, I would say just keep in mind that smaller doesn't have to mean less. You can still utilize, again, the same design, decor, and dress you had originally planned. And don't just think of the courthouse either. You know, there are lots of great venues, restaurants, and parks right here in Alexandria where you can easily and affordably celebrate without a lot of preparation. I would say work with a professional. You know, we talked about scaling down, but that doesn't have to mean you still don't have a need for a professional. They can, you know, their area of expertise is such that they can really help you develop a plan A, B, C, and D, and then be there to support and guide you when you have to come up with a plan E at the last minute. You know, I'd also say adapting creatively. In general, we're seeing a lot of cool things with events. They're tending more towards the sit downs with lots of small table groupings. So maybe before you might have had, you know, if there was a group of 30, you'd have 2 tables of 15. Now we're seeing maybe 5 tables of 3, you know, just to keep the families together and keep things small, but everybody's still in the same space. And, you know, buffets and things like that are still possible. We've done some where the servers are providing the food to people. Instead of self-service. You know, the sort of traditional cocktail parties are gone away for the time being, but there's still ways to do that, where you can incorporate, again, a station, a manned station that's serving the food, and then people go to a table and sit down to enjoy it. You know, I'd also say I think cloches are really fun, so incorporating those into either an appetizer station, like a clear covering would be fun, or even doing the traditional, you know, silver domes that you used to see for dinner. Just kind of a fun, unique event or element for that. Ceremonies in the round are another cool thing that work really well right now. It's not necessarily anything new, but just it's a great way for everybody to be gathered around the couple, but still provide that distancing element that everybody's looking for right now. Also incorporating Zoom, kind of creating these hybrid events that people are doing. So maybe you have a couple people at the actual venue, or again in your backyard maybe, and other people can be zoomed in. I myself was actually zoomed in for my brother's wedding a couple years ago when I was hugely pregnant with twins, so I was unable to attend, but you know, just one of my cousins just kind of sat there and held up the phone, and I watched the whole thing, and it was great. So you know, it's a way to be able to incorporate all the people that you want to have join you. I would also say, you know, there's fun things you can do with party favors. You know, some people were doing where they would provide flip-flops for everybody for the dance part, kind of the way to rest your tired feet. But now you could do that with a custom mask or something like that, just to, again, keep people comfortable, keep it safe, but provide a fun little element that they can use. And then in terms of the food, I'd say, you know, doing a lot more individual apps. So you can do fun things with that. You could do a little box of treats. You could do a bento box style thing. You could do individual cheese plates where it's sort of a custom made cheese plate on just a small 6-inch platter. And then 2, I'd also mention, I've seen a lot of events that are actually incorporating plexiglass in various ways. So just clear panels, maybe it's to kind of help break up the room a little bit, but I've even seen it where people use it at a table, just to kind of section people off, give them a little bit of space, but they can still see each other easily. Same thing with the bars. You know, bars or food stations might have a plexiglass panel where it's still the line of sight is still open, but you can still, you know, kind of provide a little bit of that protection.
Really great advice. So I know also at Visit Alexandria, you know, we work with couples all the time, free of charge, to find their dream venue. And recently we worked with a couple that ended up going with Union Street Public House, and they gave this couple so many ideas to adapt creatively. So I think using your vendor who knows the space really well and has worked with other couples can be, you know, a really great resource and give really great tips. So another question for you guys, when creating a budget for your smaller wedding, do you have any tips on saving money but still being able to make that statement that you want to?
Yeah, I would say the concept of micro weddings has really exploded recently with the pandemic situation. And the idea is that multiple couples, maybe 2 or 3 people, would kind of go in on a venue together, or the venue would, you know, have time slots where each couple could have, say, an hour. Maybe it's a 15-minute ceremony followed by a 45-minute reception, where there's, you know, a toast, a champagne, a little bit of champagne, and some dessert, or maybe an appetizer or something. But that way the couple can share in the cost. So the venue would set up the space for the ceremony and reception, and you'd have a florist, a photographer, a videographer, an officiant, everybody that would be there for all 3 events. But again, you're able to share the cost, so it kind of helps alleviate some of that, you know, cost where you might normally have if you're doing all those individual vendors by yourself. There's also a lot of great free resources. Obviously, the internet's amazing, but Visit Alexandria provides a wealth of knowledge as far as all the different venues and options locally here. So they would have a lot of insight to share, and they're available to consult with brides or with couples to discuss the options. I'd also say enlist your friends and family. You know, people they're home, they're bored right now. So they're always looking for something to do. So, you know, you could, for example, turn a bridal shower or a bachelorette party into kind of a DIY Zoom event. And maybe you make the centerpieces for your wedding. You send out kits to everybody with a little mini bottle of champagne and some cookies, and everybody hops on a Zoom call and has some fun with it. So.
Those are all such great ideas. I know recently the Alexandrian hosted 3 successful micro weddings in one day, which I think says so much about this hotel. Everyone got to use the same space for a fraction of the price, which is a great way to save money as well. Kim, what do you think about budgeting for a smaller wedding?
So if you're a couple that wants to go totally venue free at this time, there's a lot of fun to be had by having an at-home wedding. It is really will reduce your stress a great deal, with also giving you a great deal of control over your situation and your environment. You will, you know, create the schedule for the day and have fun with that. Maybe you do a cocktail hour before your ceremony, and you know your guests just get to mingle and relax while you're getting ready still. It gives you an opportunity to incorporate really sentimental touches such as the family china, and you know you can hire a local caterer from Old Town, or maybe your favorite chef from a restaurant here to handle the kitchen stuff, to keep it completely stress-free so you're not in the kitchen cooking. And make a bar cart, provide your own alcohol, which will save you a ton of money, or have your guests bring a bottle and just, you know, have that out, and have somebody bring ice in a cooler, because you're always going to need more ice when you're doing a party at home as well. And something really fun you can do, it's, you know, pretty cheap, or it could be free if somebody does it for you, is Southern folklore is a lot of fun. You can take a bottle of bourbon, and in order to get good weather on your wedding day, the folklore goes that if you bury it at the site of your ceremony, you will have good weather on your day, and you drink it at the reception. So that's something that can totally be done at home in your backyard. And it's a lot of fun for everybody to, it's kind of entertainment that's for free for your guests. And I will say, to add to that, one big trend I've been seeing with at-home weddings, especially locally, is the front porch ceremony. So this is a cool opportunity to really go big with your florals. Those look amazing, you know, whether it's your stoop or your porch. You kind of get a little interactive audience from your neighbors poking out to celebrate with you. And the photos are just phenomenal. So if you have the means, I would definitely recommend going for that, you know, if the weather's good.
That's a really great suggestion. I also feel like, you know, if somebody doesn't want to have their ceremony at home, they could have it somewhere else really romantic, like at the garden at the Mount Vernon Inn, and then do the reception at home. So I was also thinking more, you know, about eloping and staying local with your honeymoon. Kim, can you tell us more about this trend and how we can make our honeymoon a little bit more memorable?
Sure. So a big part of that trend is this venue slash stay combo. So venues are getting, you know, to accommodate couples really great right now. They're offering sort of packages where you get married there and then they offer a stay. So this is obviously a great choice for a hotel. Locally, you have Union Square, which is actually not a hotel. It's in an old hotel, but it is the second floor. It's the entire floor. It's a ballroom and then a kitchen and then a little Airbnb for you to stay. Makes getting ready really easy, makes, you know, catering really easy. There's also a room in the ballroom for your ceremony and your reception together. So it's sort of a one-stop shop for you there. Hotel Lorien has actually opened up weekday weddings and room blocks. So that is something that's easy for you and your guests. And they've also incorporated the post wedding brunch model, which is, you know, offered during the week. So you will save a little bit of money there. And that's just a really fun model to play with. Alexandria is also offering that as well. If you want the romantic waterfront views, you can head down to Hotel Indigo, which sits right on the Potomac River. And that hotel is certified green and LGBTQ friendly by the Virginia Tourism Board. It's really cool. It's also pet friendly. And many of these spots you can, you know, get married and then just wander out to take your photos. You definitely want to hit Prince Street. It's very charming and picturesque. It's a probably the most popular spot for photos in Old Town, with its cobblestone street and just very quaint row houses. You can also head, of course, to the waterfront. You might want to stop by the Tall Ship. That's an impressive background for your photos as well. And there's a nearby boat called the Cherry Blossom Boat that's just very charming. Or also, if you have some more time and you have, you know, you feel like walking a little further or driving, you can head down to Jones Point Park, which is a very popular spot for engagement photos and wedding photos, and I think even prom photos. And there's a lot of opportunities with photography there. There's an old historic lighthouse that's right on the water. It's the second oldest lighthouse in the country, and it's just really makes for nice photos, especially during the fall when the leaves are changing. And if you're looking for sort of the mini moon honeymoon activities, a really great fun thing to do is, you know, in the spring, if you were into seeing the cherry blossoms, which most people are in DC, if they live here or if they're visiting, you can take the water taxi right from the Old Town waterfront, and it will take you over on a boat tour of the title and where all of the cherry blossoms are blooming. Way to see the cherry blossoms without crowd. And of course, during the fall, you just can't beat Old Town, and it's very, you know, picturesque cobblestone streets, somehow even more charming with the changing of the leaves. Old Town is notorious for loving the fall months, and it really tends to come even a little more alive then as well with the cooler temps. If you're looking to cap that fun day off with a romantic meal, you might want to head to Vermilion on King Street. This is the spot where President Obama took his wife Michelle to Valentine's Day dinner, which caused quite a stir in the local media. Nearby is the Majestic, which is an intimate restaurant that can also be rented out if you want to have your whole ceremony reception there, or it's a great spot for just the two of you at night. The menu is always changing and lovely food. And on the water is Virtue Feed and Grain. That's a really neat spot. Upstairs is just uber romantic. And in the back, there is a nice little nook that can be rented out as well. Again, if you want to have your micro wedding back there, or if it's just the two of you and you want to have a really intimate meal, upstairs is just, it just kind of bleeds like this luxurious feel. And it's right in the water. So there's that too.
Everything you just mentioned has such great potential to make you feel like you're really on a romantic vacation. I even took down some notes for suggestions for my own mini moon that will take place here in Alexandria. So this question isn't as fun, but can you give us any tips on contracting or any information we can use on marriage certificates?
Yeah, I would say, you know, in general with contracts right now, it's just be big on communication. There's going to be a lot of give and take on both sides. You know, everyone's doing the best they can right now, and it can be hard to keep up with all the changes. So, you know, I would say just venues and vendors may be hit with rules and regulations that are outside of their control. So, you know, try to be understanding and realize that really nothing is set in stone right now, unfortunately. So I'd make sure to have a discussion about your expectations in terms of setup, safety, and social distancing, and certainly make sure that, you know, your vendors and your venue align with how you feel about those things. You know, also realize that even if your wedding hasn't happened yet, there's potentially a bunch of vendors who have already put in a lot of work already. So, you know, work with your wedding team to reach a fair agreement if you do decide to make significant changes with anything. And like I mentioned before, you know, professional wedding planners can be highly beneficial to have on your team right now more than ever, as they know how to think kind of about those big picture items and create backup plans to help ensure you have a fantastic celebration no matter what.
Sure. And to sort of dive a little deeper into the murky fine print that gets skipped and overlooked either when you're planning something in a hurry or eloping, or maybe you had to reschedule and there's a huge gap between your original date and your new date, you want to check out your marriage license if you've already applied for it and see if it's still good. In Virginia, it expires after 60 days. So if you had intended on marrying in June and that's now October, you're going to have to reapply in order to get married. It's just the way it is. So don't sign any contracts with vendors until you know when you can legally get married. And once you have that in place, then hire your vendors, you know, lock in the venue for the date, but you don't want to be locking in those dates if you don't have a valid marriage license. In Fairfax County, you can now, as of April, apply for a marriage license online. So it saves you a trip to the courthouse, but elsewhere in the state, you're going to need to go to your local courthouse in person. Always call beforehand because these rules, of course, right now are changing every day. It's difficult to keep track of. But do know that something that has to happen in person is actually getting married. Virtual weddings, such as on Zoom and Skype, are not legal in the state of Virginia. They didn't follow suit with states such as California, Colorado, and New York that made this legal early on. You have to get married in the presence of an officiant, and you have to sign your marriage license in their presence as well. It's also just the way it is. So just know that you can easily stream your ceremony. That is legal. You know, as Emily mentioned, she did for her brother's wedding in Hawaii. That's legal. And even now you can get help from a videographer for that. They're becoming specialized in the live streaming art along with everything else that they do. I know locally there's a team called Paperboys that is offering this service, which should alleviate a lot more stress on your wedding day. You didn't expect to have to be a tech guru, but you know, now you are a little more, but now somebody else can handle it for you. Really important to know, in Virginia, it is one of 2 states that does not recognize online ordination. So in a rush to change things around or to have a loved one marry you instead of your intended minister, they cannot be ordained online. And that can be something that couples tend to overlook. And it can be a big disappointment later on when they find this out. So just go into anything knowing that as well if you're looking to change things up. And just sort of an FYI that's good for any situation is that the state you file your license in is the state that you are married in. And it's not necessarily where you reside, but this is important, especially in the DMV. If you apply in Virginia and you want to get married, you know, on the National Mall, that's not going to be legal. You have to get married in Virginia for that to be valid. So you can always do a symbolic or a commitment ceremony on the mall, but it's not going to be recognized as legal by the government. But good news is there's no waiting period and there's no witness requirement in Virginia. So you can apply for your license and get married the same day. Just don't plan on doing that on a Saturday because most courthouses are closed. So that should be all the fine print you might need for the time being.
Oh my gosh, wow, that was all such helpful information. Thank you. So finally, using both of your extensive backgrounds, what are some final tips you can give to these 2020, 2021 brides?
You know, I'd say take a breath and think outside the box, and then think farther outside the box. You know, there's no rule that says you can't have 2 weddings. You could do one small one to kind of seal the deal, and then have a big party later. Some couples we've worked with are planning to do a huge bash on their 1-year anniversary. So that kind of becomes the wedding reception that they weren't able to have in 2020. You know, and I would say don't stress over the things you can't change, and, you know, don't sweat the small stuff. I personally spent far too much time trying to plan every detail of my own wedding, and you know, the things that didn't go as planned, I'm the only one who noticed. Everybody else had a great time. So, you know, I think since the pandemic, we've all kind of gotten used to adapting a little bit, whether we like it or not, and, you know, just rolling with the punches a little more. You know, one couple I'm working with moved from a venue in DC to the Riverside Taco Company patio, and they're not even bothering. It's a fully outdoor venue, and they're not even bothering with a tent. They said, you know, if it's drizzling, we'll be fine. We can, you know, huddle under the umbrellas, and it'll be all good. So, you know, keep some perspective, and two, don't try to go it alone. You know, there are limitless resources to help you these days. Many of them free, and you know, normal is gone for now. So just do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and to just add to that, the whole stress component, which you so wonderfully outlined, is that overall, with fewer people, you're just going to have less stress. So go into your day knowing that it's not going to go by in a blur. You're not going to miss dinner. You're going to be able to actually sit with your partner and have meaningful memories on your wedding day. Something that many couples will report was a challenge for them, you know, with a bigger wedding. And to that, your vendors are also going to be a little less stressed with less people. Photographers especially, they're not trying to wrangle all the family members and, you know, the cousins at the bar to come for a group photo somewhere, and they might have more time to play around with your shots. So find out in advance if you can play around with the shot list. Maybe think about doing, you know, just not just a first look, but do one with someone meaningful in your life, such as a parent or a loved one, and that can be a really special memory later on for everyone involved. And do keep in mind that photos are the only way to really share your day with anyone if you're not going to live stream. But so don't skip on the photos if you feel like you're downsizing. Just definitely keep your plans there. Most people who didn't get good photos regret it, and I hear that over and over and over again. So again, focus on the positives, and I will leave you with one of my most favorite sentiments. It's from my landlord. She actually got married in a law office above the Chipotle on King Street, and says that at the end of the day, it's about the love, not the fluff. So let's all keep that at top of mind.
I agree with everything that you both just said. You know, I think it really is all about turning lemons into lemonade. So thank you, Kim and Emily, for all of this information. And thank you, everybody, for joining us at home. If anybody has any questions, please contact us on these email addresses that will be shown on the next slide. Congratulations and cheers.